Lisa, thank you so much for being here to share your story with other Careblazers. Take a minute to tell us a little bit about yourself and who you care for.
Thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Lisa Davenport. I've been caring for my mother, who was diagnosed in June of 2020 with Alzheimer's. And I live in the California desert.
Wow. All right. So June of 2020, how long did you notice something was going on with your mom before she actually got that diagnosis?
I had known something was wrong for several years. She had actually gone through chemo for breast cancer in 2016. And we noticed some cognitive things start to come up more after that. In hindsight, I don't know if it was related or if she'd begun to have the cognitive problems prior to that, but that was when we really noticed it and wrote it off as chemo brain for about a year. And then we're at a year and a half, 2 years, and it was getting worse. And she kept saying it was chemo brain, but I found out later that she was actually diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment at that time and didn't tell anyone. So it kept getting worse. Mom was in Seattle and I had moved down to California. I live near Palm Springs. And so I was doing all of this long distance and I was noticing that she couldn't use her computer any longer. She couldn't use her phone. She was having trouble with words when I would talk to her on the phone. She came down here a couple times and was just confused. Things like she was putting books in the freezer, just really getting lost. And that's when my alarm bells started going off that we needed to do something. And she was still driving, so I was quite scared about that. So I finally convinced her to find a doctor closer to her home and to go and get an evaluation. That was in January of 2020. She went and got that evaluation. They referred her to a neurologist, but the referral came right when the pandemic was hitting. And so by the time I talked to them, it was March and we're in full lockdown. They scheduled her appointment for June 1st. And so I spent that time in lockdown, trying to keep my mom safe, trying to, because she would keep forgetting, I went and saw the neighbors. And, she just didn't understand what was going on. Right. And I actually drove up for her diagnosis, which was done on Zoom. It was very anticlimactic. And they just gave her the cognitive quiz and said, "You have Alzheimer's. Thank you very much." That was it. It's like, okay, well, now what? And they gave me the link to the Alzheimer's Association and we got nothing. So I told my mom, we've got several options: in-home care, nursing home care, memory care, which was at the time the last place she wanted to be during the unvaccinated period of the pandemic. I said, or you could move down and live with us and I'll take care of you. And I was shocked that she agreed. I never thought she would leave Seattle. Wow. And I was like, oh my God, now I have to take care of my mother. So we brought her down here. We got a bigger house and I spent the last 14 months caring for her here at home.
Wow. Now that's a big commitment, to do that. And it sounds like that decision was made fairly quickly. All of it, you kind of had suspicions, but at the point where she was formally diagnosed, it sounds like it was a whirlwind.
We just turned on a dime and I flipped my whole life upside down. Luckily, because of the pandemic, my job furloughed. So I was able, after August, I was able to devote my time to learning about Alzheimer's, becoming a Careblazer, tapping into some of the resources that were available locally, and doing everything that I could to try to help my mom adjust to the changes and get the stimulation is the wrong word, but activities, things that she could do to feel comfortable in a new environment. And as she was struggling herself with the magnitude of, oh my God, I live with my daughter now and I have Alzheimer's, because it was scary for her as well.
Yeah. So take us to that time when you're in her home, you're on Zoom, you're on a computer, maybe a neurologist, it sounds like, gave a brief cognitive screening. It sounds like however she did was enough for him to be confident or her to be confident enough to say, this is Alzheimer's disease. What's going through your mind? What are you thinking? How does your mom respond?
She was kind of flat about it, honestly. And I knew, so I wasn't surprised. For me, it was more what are we going to do now? Because we're in the middle of a pandemic. And I honestly didn't think that my mom was going to agree. And I thought I was going to be one of those people who was fighting long distance, trying to get her the care that she needs. So I was shocked when she agreed to move down here.
And the doctor, like on the Zoom call, did that person say your mom can't be living alone? She really needs to go live somewhere? Or you just knew like, this is time. There's just too much going on.
I knew.
Okay.
I knew. I knew it was something. And I was grateful that, I've read that there's so many different personality changes that occur in people with dementia. And some people are very resistant and some people are angry and some people fight you on everything and they get stubborn and dig their heels in. My mom is very agreeable. She wants to be around her family and people. And she just threw her hands up and turned her entire life over to me.
Wow. So for her adjusting to the new home, she seemed to do that pretty well.
I became mom in a way.
Yeah. Now that's hard because you, not only did you, become a full-time Careblazer and move your mom in with you, but you also had to buy a new house, like a bigger house. Like, and moving alone is stressful, let alone the purpose for what you were doing it for. And then now dedicating your days to this.
Mm-hmm. Most of the challenges that I had were in here, in my own brain, dealing with the anxiety, the grief, because I could, I don't know if this is fortunately or unfortunately, because I can see the pros and cons of both. My mom's disease has progressed fairly quickly, and we were able to see the changes in her quite quickly. And so the grief and the anger and I needed a lot of therapy and support for myself through this. That was the hardest part of it, finding resources and things to keep my mom occupied and finding people. I found 2 absolute angels from heaven that came in once a week and worked with her and supported both of us through it. But the hardest part for me was just dealing with my own grief and the emotions that go along with, becoming a caregiver for your parent, reversing those roles, and watching your parent disappear, because like I said, she was progressing quickly. And I would just cry when I'm watching my mom die.
Right. So where did you turn to for help? How did you get resources? How did you even learn? Like, let's find some people to come in. This is how we get to be creative with her. How did you do all that?
I'm kind of lucky because I'm resourceful and I know a lot of people. And so I just start Googling. And so I found your group very easily, and I got hooked in with the Facebook group. I found a group called Alzheimer's Coachella Valley, which is a local nonprofit here that I've learned that Alzheimer's.org is focused a lot on raising money for research, but they're not focused on providing support for caregivers. Alzheimer's Coachella Valley is dedicated to supporting people with Alzheimer's and the person caring for them. And they were a true blessing. And they had an in-person social group that met once a week in person, and they had switched it to online. And I took mom to that on Zoom. And the next week she didn't want to go. And I was like, and I'll just hit pause on that one. They also got me connected with an online support group that I still attend once a week. And they just became eventually, so by, fast forward to November, I snuck mom in again. I told her it was a seniors group. I told her a compassionate lie, and she went and she had a really good time. And then she saw the little name on the thing, and it said Alzheimer's Coachella Valley. She goes, "This isn't a senior group, is it?" And I said, "No, mom, but isn't it fun?" And that became, especially when it opened up and we were able to go in person, they became wonderful relationships. I've got dogs.
Okay. We love our dogs around here.
Yeah, the dogs, pet therapy was the best. My mom loved the animals. I've got 2 dogs and a cat, and they were the best for her. Aww. Hey, you got so that was the other big. So Alzheimer's Coachella Valley was a big help.
So your mom continued to go though, even though she knew. Okay, nice.
After that, she was in. She was like, yes. So that was a godsend for us. Then I had a friend who was an art therapist at a rehabilitation center, and he was a personal friend, and he started coming in once a week and doing art therapy with my mom. He also referred me to a friend who was an occupational therapist at the same place, and Paige would come once a week and do exercises with her and cognitive exercises, give her worksheets and handouts and homework. And that helped fill her days. I had my page work. So those 4 things were the, your group, Alzheimer's Coachella Valley, Paige and Bryce. I could not have gotten through it without them.
That's beautiful. Talk a little bit about the art therapy. Did you say his name was Bryce?
Bryce.
What would Bryce do?
I actually took all of the things, and they're hanging in her room now at memory care. It's really interesting because I thought he would just do craft projects with her, but that's not what he does. He brings in this huge table with all this stuff, and he spreads it all out, and he spreads it out in exactly the same way every week. So that there's memories of, I did this last time. And he would maybe put out he's obsessively collecting paint samples from the hardware store. And he would lay out some colors and say, which color is resonating with you today? What emotions do those colors bring up for you? Do you have any memories associated with that color? And it was more talk therapy than it was making things. And so at the end of the day, she might have a color and a word. He cuts words out of magazines all the time, and he would find a word. So she's got a light blue, and the word that she chose, or the phrase, was, "I can do it." And so she'd have this little color palette and a word. And after they'd done about 3 or 4 of these, they put them on an 8.5 by 11 or 5, I don't know how big it was, paper, and glued them down. And she got them framed, and they were hanging in her bathroom. And it was just these affirmations for her that she would look at every day and connect with. So they weren't making craft projects. He was using color and images to evoke memories for her.
Yeah, there's a reason why the word therapy is in that. It sounds very therapeutic and so creative. I love that. It sounds like your mom really connected with it.
If you're listening, Bryce Bailey.
Bryce Bailey. I know. Maybe I can link to his stuff below, and maybe he can come do an interview, like a YouTube thing for us or something. I don't know. That he sounds awesome. You have to put me in touch with Bryce.
I will. I'm really grateful.
Yeah, it's beautiful when these people come into our lives at the point when we need them the most, and really help out with their special gifts. Now, your mom, how long did she live in the home with you?
14 months.
14 months. And then something recent just happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, a week ago Monday, so 10 days ago, I moved her into memory care.
Talk to us about what decision led to that and how you're dealing with that transition.
So last September. So I got her, the first thing I did when I moved her down here was get her set up with really good medical care. And they've got great gerontology specialists here in the Coachella Valley, because everybody's old. And she was immediately referred to a neuropsychologist who gave her a 3-hour interview. And I was with her for part of it. And he talked with her and he did the really intense cognitive exam and said that she's a solid stage 4. He was able to show me where her strengths and deficits lied. Like, I didn't know that she was having trouble with hand-eye coordination. And so that explained why she wasn't able to sew and do cross-stitch and needlepoint anymore. I didn't know that. And so it was actually very informative. He then repeated the test in 6 months and showed that she was having definite declines. But the hard thing was that a lot of the things that had kept her busy before, she no longer could do, and she could no longer self-pace her tasks. She would get frustrated with me when she'd be walking around the house, in circles, trying to figure out what she was supposed to do. And I would say, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And she would just get annoyed. We were going to the group in person, and that was really the only time she was happy, is when she could just be around people and talk and socialize. And I realized that that's really the only thing that she had left that she could do. Everything else was too much of a challenge. Even like, Mom, why don't you go change the bird feeders? We'll fill the bird feeders. She would go outside and come back and not remember what she was supposed to be doing or where they were or how to do it. And so everything was hard for her. My anxiety was through the roof. I couldn't leave her alone. She had about 5 falls in a 6-7 month period. So I was having increasing concerns with her safety. And I just knew that I couldn't do it anymore. I had the chance to go back to work in the fall and to go back to school. And I just I can't do this. And that's one thing I observed, is that it seems like a lot of people lose so much of their own lives caring for their loved one over an extended period of time. And I know that some people do it because they don't have any other choice. But I also felt like some people do it just out of a sense of obligation. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put my own life, my own health at risk, at further risk, because I'm kind of a hot mess. But I'm not going to put my own life on hold for my mom. And I don't think that that's what she would want me to do. So we moved her. And luckily, she's got a long-term care policy. So we didn't have the financial stress, and we just did it.
Yeah. Have you always been that good with knowing your boundaries and where you were going to go and like prioritizing your self-care?
Yes and no, because when I was in the moment of caring for my mom, I wasn't always able to prioritize my self-care. And that's how my health went down the toilet, because my mom would leave and I would just lay on the couch and go like this, like, oh my God, what am I going to do for mom? What am I going to do with her next? Or I would just eat to numb or to check out. I wasn't reaching out to my friends. It did a number on me. I wasn't good at being a caregiver. I felt angry and resentful and anxious much of the day, especially.
How did you work through that? Those feelings of anger, resentment, frustration. How did you cope and work through those emotions? Because I think a lot of Careblazers struggle with those very emotions and then feel guilty that they even have them.
I have to be honest, in a way, I don't think I did. I don't think I did. I couldn't do it. And that's why I had to make that choice, because I saw the toll it was taking on me. And, I did some therapy early on, but it's like playing whack-a-mole. You do therapy and get okay with one stage, and then, the disease flips everything upside down and you have a whole new thing to work through. It was exhausting.
Yeah. Now, I'm guessing you have some family who was very important to your life based on some of the pictures I can see in the background. Did any of them like express concern about how you were doing? Like, did they notice signs, family or friends? Like, I'm really concerned about you, Lisa.
No, my family knows that. Well, again, most of my family is in Seattle, so they were long distance and didn't really know the extent of it. And that was the other thing. I didn't get a lot of support. Tried to get, like, for example, my sister, I would say, just call mom. All she wants to do is talk to you. And I would look at my mom's phone, no calls. Everyone wasn't able to show up the way that I hoped they would, but her sisters did and her friends did. And I was really grateful for that. But they would show up for her and assume that I'm fine because I've got this real, I'm fine. I can get it. I got it. I got this. I'm one of those types of people.
Yeah.
And my husband was really supportive, but he knew that I was going to have to, he couldn't tell me what to do. I was going to make the decisions on my own in my own time.
Yeah. Now, when you made the decision to move your mom in memory care, how did you bring it up to her?
Okay. So that was a whole new, that was the last chapter of stress and anxiety because I felt so guilty. Dealing with the guilt of that was too much to bear. So I didn't talk to her about it. I just started looking and I found the place. And we actually took her home. And that's one thing I want to talk about is travel. We took several trips with my mom, and those were the best times with her. And in June, I took her back to Seattle to see family. And the strain that it had on me, knowing that it was probably the last time I was going to bring her home and the last time that we'd be together as a family and the last time she'd remember all of us when we were together. Because they've told me probably 6 months to a year, those memories will be gone. That was almost too much for me. And then you combine it with knowing that when I got back, I was going to sign the papers and have her go to memory care. I just, I remember going in to see my dad. My parents have been divorced for a long time and just sobbing on my dad's shoulder because just the sadness and the guilt it was just, and I was making those decisions, those hard decisions pretty much by myself. I've heard so many stories on the Careblazer forum about fights between family, and I'm grateful that I didn't have that, but I also felt the stress of being the sole decision maker because everybody was so hands off. Oh, Lisa's going to figure it out. So that was a hard trip. I'm glad we took it, but it was hard.
Yeah.
And we came back and I signed the papers and started, there's all that behind the scenes work with the long-term care. So I'm just doing all the business. And then they told me they had to come and evaluate her once I signed the papers. And, we did all that. Actually, no, the evaluation came first and then the papers. And then we had our move-in date and they told me to tell her the night before. And I was like, that doesn't feel right. And I had to find that balance between, I can't carry this secret anymore. I can't carry this burden anymore versus I don't want to pull the rug out from under my mom at the last minute. So I told her about a week before. And, I set it up by just, some of the things that I knew that she had said she needed. I said, you're going to have people who know how to care for people with Alzheimer's. You're going to have people to talk to and socialize with, because I know that's something that you need. But you've also talked about the isolation of being, not having other people with Alzheimer's to talk to. And you're going to have that. You're also going to be able to help because there's going to be people there that are worse off than you. And so you'll have that purpose again. And it'll also give me the chance to go back to work, and I'll be able to go to school because I won't be able to do those things and give you the care that you need. But then if you're here, you don't have the socialization. So I just think this is a great opportunity for you. It's the best place in the Valley. And I'm so excited that we got the last room and you get to go. And she was wonderful about it. She cried a little bit, but the next day she wandered into my room in the morning, which she never did. And she goes, "Where am I going? When am I going?" She'd forgotten. So I wrote it all down for her. And it was on a piece of paper, and I gave here's where you're going, here's why you're going, and here are the pictures of the facility and what their memory care program focuses on. I gave her that little handout. Well, then that night, I was in her room, and she goes, "Have you seen this?" Yeah.
What you wrote up and what you gave her?
Those are the papers I gave you this morning. And she said, "What about this?" And she showed me the letter that I had written to her, the information. Yeah, that's what I wrote out for you for going to memory care. And she just looked glazed. And I left a few minutes later, and she went, and I went back, "Mom, what's wrong?" And she wouldn't say anything. And I said, "You didn't remember who I was, did you?" And she started to cry, and she said, "No, and I'm so sorry. I've made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry." Oh. And I said, "No, Mom, I'm so glad that you told me, and that's got to be so scary for you. But I'm here, and you're safe, and I'm really proud of you for telling me. And you're going to be okay. So let's go together and make dinner." And that made me know that I made the right decision at exactly the right time.
Wow. Now, how has she been adjusting? It's been about 10 days. How's it been?
So I haven't seen her since Monday because I went home to see friends because I needed to get away.
Yeah.
And see all the people that I wasn't able to see. So I just got back. Actually, right before I got on with you, I got an email from her friend who talked with her yesterday, who said that she told me, "Here's everything we talked about," and she sounded really good. And she gets a little freaked out by the people who are further along. There's some pretty stage 5 or levels, stage 6, stage 7 people there. And that's scary for her. But on the other hand, she's making connections with people and she's got a routine. And I reminded her that that's why she's there, and also to help people because they've got the same disease she does, and it's a chance to be of service to them. And she said, "Thank you for reminding me of that." So
that's beautiful.
So I'm going to do a little COVID quarantine and then get out as soon as I get my test results back and go out.
And that's a hard decision, for so many people to make. And you recognize like that was best for your mom. And I like how you used her interests and her strengths to bring it up, just in terms of socializing and being able to see people and talk. And like you used that to help the situation.
I did. But I also have to say that equal, if not more, was knowing that I needed it for me.
Yeah. Like you knew. Yeah.
I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah. It reminds me of what we talk about a lot. It's like we often make decisions, like there's two people to consider in any decision. The one person is the person with dementia. Like you have to consider them when you're going to make a big decision, but the second person is you, like the Careblazer. Like, and we a lot of times just leave that person out. Like we leave ourselves out.
I think it needs to be reversed. What do I do first?
Yeah,
totally. With Alzheimer's or dementia is gonna keep dementia-ing and Alzheimer's-ing, and they may or may not even know what's going on. Right. We need to think about the people who are still living.
Yeah.
First. And that was me. That was my husband and I have only been married for 4 years. We need to be married. We need to spend time together. I need to, my daughter's an adult now, but I need to be a mom and be present for her. And I'm grateful that I could model for her caring for a parent, but I also want to model for her caring for myself, caring for yourself. I don't want her to be in that position if, God help us, I wind up needing care. I don't want her to put her life on hold or her health on hold for me. I need to model that.
So do you right now, so like it's been, I know it's a short period of time and it's still in a kind of like it just happened where you placed her. Do you currently have any moments of guilt that creep into your mind or like second guessing or anything like that?
So the best advice that I got was from my friend who's went through this with her mom, who has since passed away. She said, give yourself a week of grace. And I want to just plaster that somewhere to anyone who's putting their parent into memory care or any loved one. Give yourself a week of grace, because those first 4 or 5 days were brutal. You know, first we had to get the house cleaned up after moving her stuff out. And I was physically and emotionally exhausted. And I just hit a wall of depression and sadness, because you're relieved and you miss them all at the same time. And then you sprinkle some guilt over that. And it's a really nasty concoction of stuff that you're just staring at and you have to just deal with and walk through. But it did go away. And getting a little away trip really helped. My husband gave me a little spa day. I started focusing on my health again and eating well and reconnecting with people. All the things that I wasn't doing when I was caring for my mom full time, I'm doing now. And so now, no regrets at all, because I know we're both in better places for it.
Yes, that's so great to hear. I think your strength is truly like prioritizing your self-care. And I think I would bet the majority of Careblazers watching this right now are just, that is an area where they struggle and could use some help. Right. So what would you say? I love that. Give yourself a week of grace. Like, what else could you say to somebody watching thinking there's no way? Like, they are not prioritizing their self-care. They just can't even imagine just the guilt that would go through them for even thinking about maybe making a decision that's best for themselves. Any words you can give?
Yeah, I'm thinking back on myself, the things that I did for self-care while we were in quarantine, in pandemic, with Alzheimer's mom. So the first thing I did, I signed up in the fall for a Spanish class through the community college online, and it was 2 days a week. And I could just sit here and mom was over there, and I did my Spanish because it was something for me to do that was all for me. And learning languages really helps with that neuroplasticity in your own brain. So take a class, do something that's just for you, and do it when your loved one can just be sitting right there. And I loved taking Spanish, and now I speak a little bit of Spanish. So, so that was super fun. I did yoga online. That was really great. Having pets is wonderful. You know, walking the dogs for a while, we were doing that with mom. And then I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't trust her out after she tripped over a sidewalk. So getting your own exercise in. And I also am a member of I did both my support group and 12-step recovery groups. And with those being online in the pandemic, having those connections really helped me as well. And mom knew when I was here talking to people on a computer that she didn't bug me. She knew that I was doing something for myself. And those are the things that really helped me stay sane and upright.
Yeah, it's great. And I think when we think about self-care and making decisions with you in mind, the Careblazer in mind, there's a whole wide variety of things to choose from. Everything from, doing some stretching and yoga, taking an online class, petting an animal, going for a walk, all the way to this is the time to place my loved one. It's not that once you start making decisions for self-care, it's automatically going to be, forget about everybody else. No, it's not you or your loved one. It's you and your loved one, like considering both. So I really appreciate you just highlighting the wide variety of things somebody can do to prioritize their self-care. I think that's so important.
I so often hear self-care as, oh, let's go get a mani-pedi. No, it's so much more than that. It's something that I do regularly. That's all for me to connect and know that I'm bettering myself for it.
Love it. It's so good. Now, so for Careblazers who might be watching and are thinking, okay, like maybe their loved one just got diagnosed or they haven't been doing, like, don't know where to turn. Like, what are some of your biggest, self-care is one. What are some of your recommendations for how Careblazers can go get help, find good information? Where do they start?
I don't know if there are other organizations like Alzheimer's Coachella Valley out there. You can Google it. I think it's acv.org. But if there's a local organization that helps caregivers, go find them. So
how did you find them? Refresh us. How did you find them?
Google.
Okay, so just Google local.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And the Alzheimer's Association website, even though it's big, like you mentioned, and they're more focused on research, there is a button on their main page. I believe if you go to alz.org, it'll say like find support near me, and you might be able to search that way too. But
yeah,
okay,
because
go ahead.
Just networking with other caregivers in your area, you find out about other things that you can do. For example, I learned about an organization called Music Men's Minds that's online, and they meet 3 days a week, and it's on Zoom, and you just go on with your loved one and listen to people sing songs and sing along with them.
That's awesome.
And glorious. You need to look up Music Men's Minds.
Yes, I'm going to write this down and make sure we get all this in the description.
Okay, all my links. Yeah, make Google your best friend. How do you read? I can't even remember your question now.
Oh, just things that you think Careblazers should do to help themselves. Any good resources, even if it's resources or pieces of advice or anything like that.
You know, the first thing I did when we got mom down here was I met an attorney, and we got mom's, dealing with the financial part of it, taking over your loved one's finances and legal affairs. That was a monstrous mess. And we did that immediately. So I was able to get power of attorney. I had all of her documents in place. Do that ASAP. Don't wait, because had I waited, I don't know if the attorney that we talked to would have said, yes, your mom is of sound legal to make those decisions.
That's so important.
I think that was the number one thing, because that made my life so much easier as we continued down the road. And
did you just Google to find that elder law attorney or lawyer?
I use local neighborhood groups, and I sought out, you just do a search in the neighborhood group for elder care attorney or estate and trust attorney, something like that, just to find someone who's recommended. And the person that I went to, it costs some money, but by that point, I just, I had my name on my mom's accounts, and I was able to just use her money to do that. And it was the best money that we spent. The other thing I did was she'd had hearing loss. I took her to a hearing doctor, and, which her primary referred her to, and found out that she had like 60% hearing loss in 1 year. And hearing loss contributes to dementia.
Right.
And she gave us all kinds of articles about that. So we got hearing aids for her. And it's little things like that helped the caregiver, but it also helped me, because now my mom could hear me. So I wasn't screaming all the time. Yeah. So it's about taking care of your loved one, but a lot of the things that you do to take care of your loved one ultimately will benefit you.
Yes. Love it. That's so good. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And, getting an elder law attorney or something like that, it does cost money. I just think of all the money that it'd be even more of a financial mess without that in place. And you bring up a good point, like doing it as soon as possible, because, the attorney might think your mom can't, the person with dementia is not really able to make that decision right now. They're so far gone, they can't do it. So the attorney won't, legally can't do it. But also I just think about, I just got off speaking to another Careblazer for one of these chats, and, writing down their passwords, if your mom progressed at some point, she might not have been able to tell you like where her bank is, or that she has long-term care insurance, or that like any of these things. It's like, it gets harder and harder as the disease progresses. It's not fun. It's a good like most people want to avoid it, but it can save so much down the road.
Yeah, we started the financial stuff before I even brought her down here. So while, that weekend that she was diagnosed, that I was up there, I got everything from her and started all of that. It takes a long time, getting paperwork filled out, getting the signatures. We had to sell her condo up there, and, it's a lot.
When you placed your mom in memory care and told her other family members or friends or anything, did everybody support you in your decision, or did you? Okay, that's great. Good.
Yeah, they did, because even though they didn't, my one aunt had been down here and saw her and knew, and they could tell just from talking to her. Because for my mom, the thing that has gone first and most noticeably is her language ability. She's lost her ability to write and speak. So her sentences are word salads. She'll start to say something and 3 words in, she forgets. And it's tremendously stressful it's got to be hard for her, but it's really hard as the person trying to talk to her. So they would hear it on the phone with her. So they knew, but one thing I did do was, on must have been day 5, I wrote out a long letter to family and her friends to say, it's been a long road and here's what's happened, and I want you to understand how I reached this decision and how mom has been progressing. And I kind of outlined it for them and said, here's what's going on. But then I closed by saying, here's her address. Here's how you can support her. Here's how you can make phone calls to her. She needs you. So here's how you can show up and be there for her.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. That's amazing. Yeah.
All Lisa, of the friends responded. Thank you, Lisa. Oh, you're so wonderful. I'm going to be in touch. None of my family, it was crickets.
Yeah.
So family can be hard.
Yeah, totally. It could be hard. But what you did too is you invited them to stay involved. You invited them to keep the contact and let them know what's going on. I love that idea so much. Thank you for sharing your story. Is there anything else that you want to share with Careblazers that I didn't ask that you wanted to talk about?
No, I feel almost guilty sometimes because I'm angry at how our country prioritizes care for caregivers, for the elderly. And if you don't have money, if you don't have tech savvy, if you don't have resources, this is an impossible diagnosis. And, if my mom didn't have, her late husband's pension and her late husband, the long-term care policy that they bought 30 years ago, I'd be toast. And it's motivated me and my sister to get our own long-term care policies. So we need to do that to take care of ourselves and make sure that we're saving enough, because our country does not support people. So, if you've got resources, great. If you don't, then this is a really tough road. And you're going to have to double down your efforts to find those resources, such as Alzheimer's Coachella Valley, which was free, which is a nonprofit. Find those locally supported organizations, because there's just not enough support out there.
I hate that you're right. It is an impossible diagnosis for so many. Yeah. All right. Well, Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. It means a lot. I know it's going to be helpful to a lot of Careblazers out there watching. Appreciate it.
Thank you for all you do.
You're welcome.